The one, their first marriage, not their first marriage, first part of their married life. Yeah, that's the one. It's still my first marriage, but we're still on that start of marriage. Yeah. So yeah. So we've already volunteered. Jared will take my elbow. So you might be on there. Yeah, by the way, it was then.
I figured. Who's recommending me?
We know.
You're like, it's got
Great. Oh. Yeah.
Did high school. Makes it easy. Yeah, Thunder wasn't quite there.
Like, yes, you can say it there.
Nice. Yeah. That's a good school. I had a great experience.
I'm sorry, you can't stop these things.
I got banned. I played collegiate football and I'm broken.
Hey, sorry.
All right.
I'll let you do that. That's cool.
I had a lot of opportunities in that probably the best goal in the state. State for stuff. Which is hilarious.
Why were you? Yeah.
You should be doing that. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah. Okay, that is. Lydia knew I was going. First. It is not my fault. Dad didn't tell you where he was going.
She was on the potty.
Just hold it. Yeah, she probably yelled at him about it. So.
Yeah, tell her to call me on the phone.
She goes, hey. Yell at him when you get home. It's not funny. Your daughter will cry. I'm very sorry. Oh. Okay, you're like this. Oh my gosh, calm down. Yeah. Okay.
I'm ready.
No, I think it's bad. That's not.
Okay. Alrighty. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. We've been looking forward to this one for a long time. We've had to postpone it a few times because of scheduling and stuff, so I'm excited. But we'll start with Brother Golday saying our prayer, and then I'll talk for a bit, and then we'll turn the time.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come before you this evening, we are grateful to be here, that we may learn different avenues that can help us in any type of emergency. I'm grateful for those who have put this presentation together. Watch over and bless them. Let thy Spirit be upon us as we strive to learn what we need to learn. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
First, I want to thank Brother Hurd for the audio and visual, all this stuff. It is being recorded as well, so maybe when you ask questions, just speak up a bit. Thanks, Calvin. And then to our interpreters, thank you so much. And then this is Deputy Loveland. He's with the Bonneville County Sheriff. He lives in the cottage as well. Yeah. So we've been excited. I just met him tonight. We've talked on the phone, so but we're excited. He has a lot of experience, and we'll just turn the time over to him. Thanks to the Giffords, they set this up. They started this as well. So we'll turn the time over to him, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. So, thanks.
Evening, brothers and sisters. Like he said, Brother Loveland. I'm a deputy for the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Been doing that for about 3 years now. Prior Air Force to that. Tonight, I'm grateful for this opportunity, by the way, to be with you guys. I'm not here tonight in a law enforcement role, but I want to convey a lot of the things that I've learned from that. I'm here as your neighbor, as a fellow church member, and someone who cares deeply about the safety of our families in our area. Everything we'll talk about tonight is, I'm hoping, will be reasonable and practical, things that you can input in your daily lives that will help you feel a little bit safer in our community. I want to stress this is not about fear or panic or even expecting the worst. Instead, this is about preparedness, stewardship, and awareness, qualities the Lord has encouraged his people to have throughout history. My hope is that tonight that you'll leave feeling less anxious, informed, empowered, and confident. Okay, so first, why situational awareness matters. Something I've learned in law enforcement is most crime, especially in our area, is opportunity-based. People take advantage of people's distraction, their isolation, or the predictability of their schedule. Situational awareness in these situations means paying attention. It means not being distracted when you're going places. It means noticing what's normal and what is not. It doesn't mean being suspicious of everyone or living in fear. Awareness buys us time. It gives us the opportunity to evaluate a situation and to look at it and say, is this a situation that I need to get out of? Or is this something that I need to take time to do something differently? It gives us time to change direction and then also time to avoid a problem before it starts. Most of the prevention for things starts way before danger arises. If we are paying attention to where we're going, if we're aware of what we're doing, and we're looking at people around us, it is very often that situations will not even arise. Okay, so these are just some topics that I discussed that people would want to know about for our area, and I thought they were good points. So first one's going to be parking lot safety. Make sure you're parking in a well-lit area. Make sure that you are looking and scanning your surroundings. Have your keys out when you're getting to your car. Do a walk around your car if you need to. And then walk with purpose. Walking with purpose, whether you are traveling abroad or you're here in the States, if you walk with purpose, people will very often just leave you alone because you seem confident, and people don't want to mess with people that seem confident. If something feels off, something lingering, a vehicle that doesn't belong, or just a general sense of discomfort, listen to that feeling. I have had that feeling keep me safe on more calls than I can tell you about in my job. There have been many calls where I have been very clearly directed to don't go to that area of the house, make sure you go in this area, stay away from this. Listen to those, because often that instinct is actually the spiritual prompting. And if we listen to those, God will give us more promptings and give us more opportunities to avoid danger. With those instincts, you can always go back inside to where you're going, ask for help from someone, or move to a different location. No appointment or errand is worth ignoring that prompting. Okay, safety in traffic. Avoid distractions. I know cell phones are even more distracting than they ever have been before, and we've just got to make sure that we're staying off that. We got to make sure that we're paying attention to other drivers. We've got to make sure that we maintain safe distances, especially in Idaho with the weather that we get. A safe distance is often farther than what we think, so I would make sure we're watching other drivers, not just traffic signals. Often intersections are one of the more dangerous areas, especially in my job for vehicle accidents, because we assume that other drivers are going to do what it says. Oh, it's a red light, they're going to stop, they're not going to go. Oh, it's yellow, they're going to start slowing down. That's some of the worst accidents I've seen, is when people blatantly ignore stop signs or intersection traffic
We're
signals.
supposed to slow down.
On yellow?
At the intersections?
On yellow?
On the yellow light.
He's like, is that we're not supposed to speed up? Fair enough. Fair enough. Yes, please do slow down. Unless you're right at the intersection. Let's be safe on the road. I appreciate that question.
I'll write that down.
Yes, please do. Slow down at the yellow lights. Okay, aggressive drivers. This is a big one. Road rage incidents happen all the time. I've responded to many of them. They will often escalate to weapons being drawn on each other, and it's for the dumbest stuff possible. I mean, getting cut off, really, really dumb stuff. So as much as some of us, including myself, really hate bullies and would very much like to see those people put in their place, the best course of action is to not engage. Avoid eye contact, ignore gestures, maybe don't add your own gestures either to other fellow drivers. But I would say if you avoid these situations, or if someone's tailing you or being weird, pull off the road, make a U-turn, get off the freeway exit, just avoid the situations. If it continues to escalate, even though you are trying to get out of the way, go a different direction, call us, we'll come out as quickly as possible, especially if the people are being problematic. Okay, this is a point I really want to make. Choosing calm in these moments is not about pride or proving a point. It's about protecting life, including your life, if your family's in the car. I know some of the most competent and capable people that I know, both with firearms and with fighting, avoid conflict at all costs. They do not engage in conflict. They do not try and fight with people. They leave situations as much as possible. Okay, another topic I got asked to talk about, general home protection. Our homes should be places of refuge, safety, and peace. I would say this is true for the calls I take especially, most crimes against homes are preventable with simple measures. Lock your doors and lock your windows. I know there's probably half of you in here that don't lock your front door. I would please suggest that maybe you do that. You can also use, for nighttime, you can use exterior motion lighting. That's very, very helpful, and that discourages a lot of people if the light kicks on when they walk in the backyard. Also, security cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper the further that we move forward. I imagine a lot of you have a ring cam or some type of security camera system in your home. Another thing that some people don't think about, if you have a larger property, try and maintain some sight lines so people can't be hiding in places near your home, or just make sure that you're trying to keep your property generally maintained so that you can see if somebody's trying to get into your home. I do think it's important, the more that we know our neighbors, especially in neighborhoods, sometimes it's a little harder if you have more of a separate property, but if you are getting to know your neighbors, you're making sure that you're reaching out to them, you build a little bit more of a community, people are more likely to tell you if something is weird or something is off. Criminals prefer homes that look dark, quiet, or unattended. A well-lit, lived-in home sends a pretty clear message. People are here. This is not a place that is an easy target. So if you're out of town, have someone check in on your home. Leave a couple lights on, make your house look a little more lived in. And that definitely discourages people. This is more of a specific situation, but what to communicate to 911 in the case of someone coming into your home, or you do have to defend yourself in your home. The biggest information that I want being on patrol, so that's what I do every day, is I'm a patrolman for the county. So if you call, I'm the first person to show up. So we do days and nights. What I want to know if someone's on your property is I want to know who you are, where you're at, what they look like or what they're doing, or if in the case that you've had to engage someone in a fight or in a gunfight, I just want to know someone's injured, this is the specific situation, I'm going to put away my firearm before you guys get here so we're not confused about who's shooting at who. We had a situation that we went and helped with Bonneville County down in Shelley where someone tried to rob a homeowner. They both got in a gunfight, homeowner and person were both injured. The whole thing was a mess, but we got good enough information that, hey, I'm injured, I've been shot at, this is where I think this guy is at, and we were able to resolve that situation. But clear, concise communication for us, that's my biggest thing, because often I'll roll into a situation and all I have is the information that my dispatch gives me. If that's not clear and concise, I am in the wild trying to figure out what to do when I respond to people's homes. And many times people will be like, this is weird, there's a window open, I think someone's in my house. I mean, we're more than happy to go clear your house for you if you feel like there's something weird or off, and it's not a burden to us at all. I would much rather respond if you feel like something's weird, and we're happy to check your property. Something else I wanted to talk about for home protection, but especially for your families. Family emergency plans are a really, really good idea, especially if you have children. Plan out a few different scenarios. Cell phones go down, where do we meet, what do we do? Okay, you guys are at school, what's the plan, where are we trying to rendezvous, how are we going to get there, what's our next method of communication? So I would highly recommend that you look up some family emergency plan ideas and talk those through with your family. Because in the case that you need those, natural disaster, something crazy happens, it's much better to have those plans set in place ahead of time. So these are some of the things that I would say you are more than likely to see at some point in your life living in our community. Thankfully, we have a wonderful community, but no community is without challenges or without crime. Common issues are property crime, so basic theft, property damage, things like that. That's probably the most common thing that I deal with, especially in our nicer neighborhoods. That's usually what I'm responding to. It's not usually, a crazy domestic disturbance, but those do happen sometimes in our nicer spots of town. One that has been very common lately, which I'm very sad to say, there's been a lot of scams and fraud that a lot of people have been falling for. Something I specifically want to talk about with the scams and with fraud is if it feels like there's an unnecessary level of urgency, that is always a huge red flag. If someone is really urgently trying to get you to do something, one of the most common ones that we've had lately in our area is someone calls and says, you missed jury duty, you have a warrant out for your arrest, the fine would be $2,000, but we're going to make it $500 for you today, if you want to pay it in Bitcoin or in gift cards. And which, in my mind, I'm responding to this call and I'm going, who in their right mind? But that urgency often overrides this situation's weird. Why would I go along with this? And so if anything seems off, please call dispatch. Please call dispatch and say, this seems weird. Do I have a warrant? And they'll go, no. So just, if anything seems weird, please call before it gets to the point of any type of fiscal exchange, because it is so painful when people lose money to these people because I don't have a way to track that down. I'm not the feds. I don't have some database where I can pull whoever called you from Asia to try and scam you. So please call before it gets to that point.
Would you say that's the same in all localities? Like if my parents live in Utah or my aunt and uncle who's older live in Washington State or whatever, would you say that's the same? That generally that you say the same thing? As far as like you're saying that you'd be willing to come check it out,
Absolutely.
Is that's not just small town Idaho?
No. All the cops I've interacted with in Utah, in surrounding agencies, the day-to-day patrol guys, they generally they're pretty easygoing. Like, we want to be helpful to our communities. We'd much rather you call us before an issue arises than us having to respond to an issue that's already occurred, especially because I've taken cases where people have put $70,000 into some random account via untraceable means of money, and that is really tragic when that happens. But yeah, I would say, but also scams are just very much more common in the higher age bracket because they're trying to utilize fear and a sense of urgency to get people to do things they normally would not do. Something that is very possible to be seen here, I've responded to disturbances at grocery stores or even in nicer neighborhoods. If disturbances spill out, obviously avoid engaging unless there's a threat to you or your family, and just call us. Unless you feel like you need to intervene right then because someone's life is threatened, my recommendation is just kind of stay away from them. At the end of one of my shifts, I wasn't even responding actually. I was driving through the Walmart parking lot and I see two parties screaming at each other. I see someone speed away in a car, so I stop them. They end up being DUI. I arrest them for DUI, but it can just happen at the most random time. I wasn't going there for anything specific. I was like, I'll drive through the Walmart parking lot. I've got 5 minutes left on my shift. I'll go home. Instead, I'm there for 2 hours taking somebody to jail. But I would say, unless there's a very clear danger to someone's life and you feel a necessary need to intervene for disturbances and stuff, keep your distance. There's no reason you getting wrapped up in it unless it's like a neighbor and you're like, oh, this person is in immediate danger. I need to intervene and make sure that someone's spouse is okay because it's a domestic disturbance, something along those lines. Okay, faith and preparedness. Preparedness is faith-based. This is not something that I want to preach because I think that we need to be paranoid. I would say I'm one of the least paranoid people I know, but I am very cognizant and aware most of the time. Situational awareness requires a presence. We have to be in the moment. We can't be worrying about future anxieties or depressed over past problems. We have to be present. And I would say that's also being good parents and good members of our community requires a presence, and it requires an awareness of our fellow ward members and of our neighbors. When we are prepared, we panic less. We're more willing to help other people because we know that our needs and our family's needs are taken care of. It increases our ability to serve. I know that the more that I have gotten, whether it's home storage, preparedness supplies, or different things, I've been increasingly more willing to go outside of myself because I know all my needs are taken care of. It's a lot easier for me to try and reach out to people and make sure that they're taken care of. Prepared families build resilient wards. Prepared wards strengthen communities. Our church community is incredible because we already have such a tight-knit group of people that are often our neighbors, 5 doors down, 2 streets over. It's really easy for us to become close with those people. And if we can also not only take the church closeness, but we can take a community closeness, if we can translate that, our communities are only going to get safer. Because as we increase the communication amongst each other, and as we increase each other's preparedness and teach each other skills that, maybe I'm not really good at canning, but maybe I have a friend who's really good at it. As we share those skills with each other and prepare our families, we will increase our ability to serve each other. Okay, in case of catastrophe, we talked a little bit about, in preparation for me doing this, that people want to know, okay, something cataclysmic happens. We're EMP'd, we have no power. What do I need in my home? I have a handout I'm going to give each of you that you guys can look at later, but a lot of the basics is food and water, medical supplies, defense options for your home, and then potentially some options to harden your home. They were saying that, I think President Gardner, had been talking about having plywood to board up your windows, but any options that you have to harden your homes. We in America, I served my mission in Europe. Most front doors in Europe have like 6 steel bolts and they're concrete reinforced. Most doors here in America, if I have to respond to a call, I can boot that door in myself. I don't even need a sledge. I just step up and kick it in. And so there is an awareness that a lot of our homes are pretty easy to access if someone really wants to do that. So something to be cognizant of is if something goes crazy, do I have a way to harden my home up a little bit, just to make it a little bit more difficult for people to get in. Yeah, we'll have a Q&A section here in a little bit, so if you have questions about that or anything, please let me know. But we'll keep moving forward for now. Okay, this one's pretty near and dear to me, obviously, as a law enforcement officer. Protection options. I'm really grateful we live in Idaho. Not that long ago, we passed a law that you do no longer need a concealed carry weapons permit to carry concealed. You can just carry concealed now. I really am appreciative of the opportunity in this country to protect ourselves. Most protection things start with very clear verbal boundaries. Yes, sir?
Is that across borders?
No. So there are some other states that have constitutional carry. However, if you're planning on visiting other states, I would highly recommend you do get your CCW, your concealed carry weapons permit, because most other states have reciprocity with Idaho if they have permitting.
So that enhanced?
The enhanced one. Yeah, and I would just look up Idaho enhanced, which states are reciprocal on that. But it's a really nice option here in Idaho, yeah, but if you're traveling, you've got to be really cognizant of that, because even in some other states, you've got mag capacity restrictions. There's a lot of different things. Like if you're going to travel to Colorado, you got to be really aware of what you're taking with you. Because even for example, even in Colorado, I'm pretty sure a lot of states don't allow switchblades, and Idaho does not care. So if you're going to pick certain protection options, some states are very picky about it. Idaho is not, which I'm very grateful for. Less lethal options, pepper spray is really good. I hated getting pepper sprayed. I didn't enjoy anything about it. It's not fun. I had coworkers who I've never seen get that mad in their entire life. So it works pretty well. Just be aware, if that's something that you want to carry as a defensive tool, you might get exposed yourself. Because wind will kick that back into your eyes. You might also be sitting there huffing and puffing and having a really bad day because it feels like you just rubbed jalapeno peppers in your eyes. So something to be aware of for that one. Another good option for a less lethal protection is a baton. Those are pretty easy. They have collapsible ones now for ladies. You can carry those in a purse really easy. For guys, you can tuck it in a pocket. That's a pretty easy option. But again, something I really try to stress to people about protection is you have to be willing to use the tool. Really not helpful for you to carry a gun if you're not willing to shoot anybody, or a baton if you're not willing to break bones. So you've got to be pretty aware, if I'm going to use this for protection, am I actually willing to use it? Yes, sir. I've had mixed reviews with people that have used those. Remind me, the burner launch is like the pepper ball.
Pepper spray paintball.
Okay, yeah, okay. Because law enforcement will use it's called pepper ball, so it's similar to burner. I mean, it's not good. It's not a good time if you get hit with it. But obviously, it depends on what the situation is. Is someone charging me with a knife? Did they draw a pistol on me? There's a lot of considerations.
Like a handgun and it shoots five
I would say it's going to be incredible at discouraging stuff if you can get to it quickly enough and you can maintain some distance. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, right. And then it just disperses that powder all over. Yeah. Yes, sir.
To that point on your last bullet there, you're talking about, you have the tool, you're willing to use the tool. You also have to realize the ramifications to using it.
Very much so, and that's.
I carry it all the time, but I know that if I'm going to use that tool, most likely I'm probably going to go through some legal ramifications,
Yes.
possibly prison time. But is it worth my family saving life? Again, it's weighing the situation and being able to do that under stress. Like having that already thought out in your head, because you're not going to sit down and have a contemplative moment. In 1.5
Should I draw my
seconds.
pistol as this guy's running at me?
Yeah.
Super fair. Super fair. Yes, sir.
Also, I think with the enhanced training we went through, the instructor said it's better to have training than not. Like he said, in Idaho, you don't have that permit to carry a firearm, but if you have to use a firearm, it's better to show that you went through some kind of training
Very much so.
than just saying I have some Joe Schmo shoot people, so.
Yes, and I will say along the legal thing, I can't give too much legal advice being a law enforcement officer. However, it's very important to be able to articulate the danger to yourself and your family. And if you can articulate that and it's pretty clearly self-defense, you probably won't have too much trouble in the legal system in Idaho. I don't love everything about our prosecutor's office, but they're pretty good about us being able to defend ourselves here, which I'm really grateful for. Yes, sir.
So you're shooting, you shoot kill or shoot wound? Shoot kill.
You shoot how you train. I train to stop the threat. I think that's the best way to communicate that, because I'm not a good enough shooter to just intentionally wound people in a situation, and I would say I'm a pretty good shot. Yes,
I
sir.
go back to your earlier point where you talked to other people that there's world-class fighters, and like, oh, we're gonna do in a street war, what are you going to do? I'm gonna run. Like they're not gonna get hurt from it. Not there.
Yes.
And so to that point, again, weighing the option and running through those protection options prior is key to understanding your environment. Like I said,
Very much so.
prepared. You've already gone through the scenarios in your head. You know how you're going to react, right? And you don't want to have to make critical decisions relevant.
Yes. And I would say this is something that you can definitely talk through with your children, especially as they get into like later teen years. Just walk through those situations. Hey, this is, something crazy happens. It's Walmart. You see people fighting. Do you have the option to leave? Leave. Call 911. Hey, this is going crazy. These people are fighting. I had to leave because I didn't want to stick around, but then at least I now know and I can go and try and respond. I would say, I think the more fight training and firearms training I've done, kind of the point that's already been brought up, the more that I've done, the more I try and avoid situations. But we actually have quite a few really good trainers here locally that you can just look up that do enhanced courses that do a really good job of, they walk through a lot of the legal stuff. There's also a lot of like associations that you can join, a lot of concealed carry, USCCA, some other stuff like that. I'm not a member personally, but there's a lot of options like that that will educate you on protection options here in Idaho. Oh, for firearms specifically, something I really want to stress. If you carry a firearm, get a high quality holster. I don't want to see some hunk of junk that won't hold the gun in, because if you carry properly, you're probably carrying one in the chamber and you don't want your gun to go off. So There are quite a few reputable companies now for holsters, but if you're going to carry often, get your holster, go train with it. Don't just, hey, I know how to shoot my gun from here. If you're going to carry a holster, carry it, get used to drawing it, be comfortable, be confident, because if in the case that you have to use it, I would much rather you just be comfortable with it. When I'm done talking, I would love if you guys want to come look at this, but you are way more likely to use medical supplies than you ever are to use a firearm. So my recommendation, and I can write these down specifically, but these are just 2 medical kits that I just picked up on Amazon. They're 4 vehicles. They're super basic. One's from Rhino Rescue, and I think the other one is from Sherber. They're really basic, but also like pretty necessary if you have any like severe car accident or any severe bleeds. So they've got tourniquets, hemostat gauze, Israeli bandages, chest seals. So if someone gets shot or someone gets severely injured, you can just stick this in your car. You can stick this piece on your headrest, so you can just have it in the back of your car. I would highly recommend that everybody have, often these are just called blowout kits because they just deal with a lot of more intense bleeding. But I would much prefer that you guys have a kit that can actually handle actual bleeding than just some super basic first kit with a tiny bit of gauze. Because if there's some type of traumatic injury, a tourniquet is going to do way more than most of these other super basic kits. So if you guys want to come up and look at those after, I think those are a great option. I'll pretty often carry in a sling bag because nobody expects a dude who's wearing a sling bag who looks a little like, is that guy from Idaho? No one expects me to be carrying a firearm. So that's a pretty good option, to be honest, because nobody expects that. I've got cuffs, I've got my badge, I've got flashlight, I've got tourniquet, so I can carry a lot of things in here that I maybe couldn't just carry on my person or on my belt. So especially if you're wearing a t-shirt and shorts going to the county fair, that's maybe a way better option because nobody knows that you've got a firearm with you. And then one other thing, this is more if you've already accomplished a lot of your preparedness goals for your family. I would highly recommend armor. It's not that expensive anymore. You can get pretty nice armor for pretty cheap. There's decent carriers. This one is just from T-Rex Arms, but there's a lot of companies that sell plates for rifle threats. These are a really nice option to have in your home. Makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. Somebody breaks into your house, throw your armor on, grab your gun. It's pretty easy to feel comfortable and confident. But that's more of a peripheral if you already have all the rest of your stuff done as far as preparedness.
I had a question.
Yes,
as
sir.
far as first aid goes, does the state of Idaho have like bystander laws? Like
Good
like
Samaritan laws.
Good Samaritan laws?
We do. So as long as you're trying to help someone
Like
in good
if
faith.
someone had a car accident, they had like a sucking chest wound, and you pulled out your IFAK and you started
thrown on a chest
patching them
seal.
up, are we going to get arrested?
No. And in fact, I've had many situations where I've had civilians helping me with medical response on severe injury car crashes or on fatal car crashes. Not once have we ever jammed anybody up about that. I've had people help me rip people out of cars. I've had people help me put out fires on active vehicle fires. We are not worried about people trying to help us.
Okay.
Unless you impede EMS from doing something, as long as you're just doing your best to help, you are very much covered in the state of Idaho. Yes, ma'am.
On the body armor, do you have a recommendation for like kids, like in school? I know they make some of those backpacks and things that you can.
Yes, the inserts.
Yeah.
I think those are a pretty decent idea for your kids because you can get those for not very expensive anymore, and a lot of those will stop most handgun threats, and you can just stuff them in the back of your kid's backpack, and it doesn't add a lot of weight. So I think those are a pretty good idea. Catch me after. I have a couple company recommendations. I'll have to look them up though. Was there another question that I missed here? Yes, ma'am.
So what about the little taser-like things that they try and sell women?
Tasers are okay. I think the biggest issue with the taser is once the effect is done, that person is now fully capable just as much as they were 2 seconds before. So if you're real comfortable that you can keep a taser on them until you can get some distance and get out of there, I think they're an okay option. But again, if I pull my taser on someone at work, it's a 5-second duration. So as soon as that's over, if they're mad, they can jump right back up and keep fighting me. So it's an okay option, but again, that's something I would try and get more specific training on. Because whereas like pepper spray, if you actually catch them in the face, I mean, that's 2 hours minimum. exposure, even if you start, flushing your face. So if you're comfortable using a taser, I think they're a great option. They are a little bit more pricey though than like you would be with mace.
They also require close.
Yes, which my preference would much be you pepper spray them at 15 feet than anything else. Was there one more hand? Okay, this is a little bit of a pivot. I asked specifically if I could talk about this because I feel really strongly about this with my job. I've taken some cases that have made it very clear to me that we need to have more conversations about online and digital safety. Basic things for you guys, and then I'm going to talk a lot about our children, but protect your personal information. Be aware of who you're giving personal information to on the phone. Be aware of who you're emailing personal information to. One thing I would really recommend that you do that I did specifically before I started this job because I didn't want to have a big online presence is get on your social media, check who can see your profile. See if it's available on Google search, because for a lot of you, if you just Google your name, the first thing that pops up is your Facebook profile and a bunch of it's unlocked. If people want information about you, home address, where you live, a lot of that stuff can be available if you don't take steps to lock some of that information. Most companies now are pretty good. If you go in to settings, you can restrict most of that. But I would say whatever social medias you're using, unless you have a social media for your job and you need an online forward-facing presence, my recommendation is restrict it to friends only, restrict information that people can see, even if it's like friends of friends. I just think that the more that you do that, the more that you're protecting the privacy and safety of your family. We already kind of talked about scams, so I'm going to skip through that. Think through clicking. If you're getting emails, if a website seems sketchy, just avoid it. The big one that I wanted to hit on was talking to our children and protecting our children with online safety. I know President Gardner has hit a lot of this very hard, but I want to back that up from a law enforcement perspective. Okay, I'm going to just be reading some of this because this is all stuff I've wanted to really get across. For parents, online safety is less about technology and more about conversation. Children and youth don't need lectures, they need ongoing conversations. The goal is to help them understand why boundaries exist, not just what the rules are. Encourage your children to talk to you if something online makes them uncomfortable, confused, or scared. They should know that they will not get in trouble for being honest. Just trying to think about how much of this I should tell you guys, but I've taken some very concerning cases where children get involved, minors get involved with adults via the internet. It's a lot of different options, but I would really encourage you to, one, unless you feel like your child is really with it, maybe toward the end of high school, I would never allow your child unfettered internet access solo. If they're going to be on a computer, I would have it be in a public setting. If they have a smartphone, I would have it restricted. There have been so many children, countless children, who I've dealt with whose lives are in shambles, and it's mostly because of the internet. Now, there's some poor parenting in there as well, but mostly it was exposure to dangerous, pornographic, really messed up content online. I would also say if your children have Snapchat, they have probably been introduced to pornographic material via that app. That app is, our detectives specifically have training on Snapchat because of the amount of crime that occurs over that platform. It is very unsafe, and you get to make choices as parents, but I would recommend that your children do not have that. Another big one is Roblox. I know a lot of kids play that. That is not a safe platform. They have exposed a lot of problematic stuff that's been going on that. So I would make it very clear with your children what apps, what games are allowed. I would constantly be checking their phone if you even allow them to have a smartphone. Again, yes, sir.
Anything with an online chat. Do not let
That's where I'm at.
Minecraft, any game that has any attachment. I mean, even as a parent, we owned a couple of Nintendo Wii type platforms and had pornographic images come across, even that were just drawings that I would have a hard time explaining to my kids. So I would highly suggest that, again, you guys are parents, right? You guys' calls, but that's where the problems come. There's predators in every single one. Online chat platforms just to look at.
So in some discussions I've had with parents specifically on that is, well, I want my child to be a good steward of their own choices. And I'm like, I agree. I'm way less worried about children's access to the internet and the internet's access to our children. I think that is just so crucial that we have conversations with children and with grandchildren about the content that is on the internet. Because it went from when I was growing up, you had to work kind of hard to find pornographic content. You can type in 3 words on Google and kill safe search and see terrifying stuff now that you would never want your child to see or even an adult to see. So the danger for these situations is child gets introduced to stuff they don't understand. They don't talk to you about it because there isn't a good method of communication. They get exploited by someone who's older, and they get wrapped up in stuff that's really, really dangerous. And then oftentimes it ends up with me responding because we now have a situation where a 14-year-old has been sleeping with a 23-year-old. So there's stuff like that that is, I never want to have to respond to. And most of that is on parents doing a judicious job with their children.
Sorry, I guess I got one to say about
No, you're good.
And none of this, very rarely does it start straight out of the gate with inappropriate material. Very rarely. It starts off as friendships and very innocent looking and sounding things where it's just like, oh yeah, and there's nothing there. It morphs over time. And that's, again, we're giving minors multi-trillion-dollar tools and expect that there's adults I wouldn't give a hammer to, right? Like I'm not going to give
I can have my child.
Tool
Here you go.
right? With unvetted access to your point. And so it's, again, our responsibility as parents to either restrict or teach them how to use it. Again, I'm completely confident in my son using a hammer because I've taught him, but it takes that ability to be able to do that. And when they just run into it, they think the world's great initially until it's not.
Yes. Another thing, have conversations with your children. If they're in public school, they're going to get exposed to this stuff. Even if you're doing an incredible job at home, so you've got to have conversations with them about, come talk to me if you see content that you don't understand or that is inappropriate. Some warning signs for parents to be looking at, sudden secrecy with devices. So any immediate, like now all of a sudden they don't want you to see that. Emotional withdrawal or agitation after being online, and that might just also be an indication of maybe let's not play as many video games. To your point, new online friends they won't talk about, huge flag. And then requests for privacy that seem unusual. Like, oh, I just want some of my own space. Too bad, you got your phone. You got to be in a common area. One of the best things is common areas are places for device use. If they have devices, have them have a normal alarm clock, have them plug their phone in on kitchen counter or in a common area. Okay, so monitoring tools on phones can help, but there's a lot of ways to get around them. Most important safeguard is your trust, the trust between you guys combined with accountability. You've got to start building that early so that they'll come to you with those issues. We can explain to our children that accountability is a gospel principle, just as we don't lock, doors because we distrust our family. We use safeguards because we value what we have. So we're going to obviously protect what we have. Also, let them know devices are a privilege and a part of family stewardship. If your child's being a problem with their phone, take it. I cannot tell you how many times I have had to myself try and take phones from children because they won't give them to their parents. And I'm just mind blown that there's even that type of relationship that they can't just say like, excuse me, this is my property, give it back. So it is really important to have an understanding with your children that I am the parent, I am the steward of this house. We're gonna go with what I want to do. Something more along the lines of gospel principles, I would say have conversations with your children about have them ask themselves, would I feel comfortable with my parents or with the Lord seeing this? I think the parents' question is a little easier for some kids, but if they're watching a show and they're like, that was problematic, maybe my parents wouldn't want me to watch this. I think that's a good question. And then, does this invite the Spirit into my life? I really want to emphasize that the content that you consume in your home will set a precedent for what your child sees as normal. If you are consuming content as a family that is showing morals and ideals outside of what we believe, it is more likely that they will perceive that as normal. I know that that is more and more pervasive in our media of lifestyles, choices, things that we do not agree with, but you've got to carefully curate the media in your home, because if you do not, people will want, your children will see that as, oh, that's, they have a partner, that's normal, and we're like, actually, we don't believe that. But if you're not curating the media that your children consume, there will create a sense of normalcy for that. You don't need to be a technology expert to be effective, but I would highly recommend that you be more technologically capable than your children. We live in an era of technology. It is not that hard to get competent with it. That doesn't mean you need to know every in and out as well as them, but I would be aware of how their social media functions, if it has instant chat options, if it has direct messaging options. Okay, I am going to bring this up. So I imagine most of you are aware of how far AI has come in probably the last 2 or 3 years. But I would be very aware and have conversations with your children that there is now AI that will curate specific pornographic content for their asks and for their wants, and that is very easily accessible online. So there is now, you can have full-blown relationship conversations with AI now. You've got to be aware that those are options out there, and that children or depressed teenagers, people will seek out things that help them feel wanted, and those are options now that they can access readily and easily. And I would be very aware of what AI your children use, and if they do use anything, even if it's to edit a school paper and they're using ChatGPT, I would have access to that account, and I would be constantly checking what they're running through. Okay, I want to close with this thought. Situational awareness is not about living in fear. Same with the online stuff. It's not about living in fear, it's about living intentionally. Creating intention with your family, with the habits that you practice. Small habits practiced consistently will make a meaningful difference over time. I appreciate you for your attention, your willingness to prepare, and the way that you care for one another. I would be happy to answer any questions or concerns you have now, and I just want to open it up for any questions about anything that I've talked about.
Just a little clarification, if you will. Most of us have cell phones. Many of us have cell phones from different states, different area codes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we call 911 here in Bonneville County, is it going to the Bonneville County Dispatch, or is it going to somewhere else that is tied to our area code?
So it actually triangulates off your cell phone location. So it doesn't matter if you're within Bonneville County or even near Bonneville County. My dispatch will often get calls from Jefferson or Bingham because they're close to the line, and then they have to transfer. But if you're in Bonneville, it's going to get sent to our
So
dispatch.
the same as if you're traveling down the road and you
Correct.
observe erratic driving behavior or whatever, and you want to report that as
Yes.
suspicious.
Yep. And if it's a highway,
Location-based.
yes. And if it's a highway, they may have to put you into the county, and then they may have
Sure.
to transfer you to the state police. But that would be the only transfer that would need to occur, especially if you call 911. It triangulates specifically off your location. If you want to call non-emergent dispatch, you may have to Google that number if you're in a different jurisdiction. But if you call 911, it will specifically send you to the nearest dispatch center.
Even if you have your location off.
Correct, because it's triangulating the cell phone
Right.
call
Thank you.
location. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So this has happened to me several times in the house. I've had people come up to me in the parking lot asking me for money and come really close.
Mhm.
What should you do, and should you always go right in? I mean, they're right in your face and they want money. And I've had it happen like 6 or 8 times now, also different parking lots. I must look easy, I don't know. People must come up to me.
Why are you asking me for money?
This is close or
You
something.
just sound really sweet. I'm gonna ask you for candy.
Right. I would say if they do anything threatening or that would potentially be criminal, I would for sure call it in. However, I would make certain to set very clear, like, do not step any closer to me.
You can say, just go
Absolutely,
like this.
absolutely. Put a hand up, do not step any closer to me. That will often, just that, being that straight with people will often like, oh, all right. You may have to sound a little mean, and you seem very nice. So you might have to sound a little upset, but they
They won't escalate it.
well, and if they choose to, then hightail out of there and call us. But most of the time, if they're panhandling and you're very straight with them, it's pretty rare for those people to get aggressive here. Maybe if you're in some bigger cities, people might get aggressive, but here, most of our panhandling people are very.
Should you call it in?
You can. You can. I mean, we'll send someone over. We're not upset about going over there and being like, yo, quit bugging people in the parking lot. You're being dumb. We're a little bit restricted because of the Constitution with what we can do with some of those people. And they've made some decisions about how we can handle some of that I don't love. I would much prefer if I could just get those people out of our town because they drive me crazy. But I'm also a little bit intense about that. So I would say if you feel unsafe, call it in.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So if you're carrying, and let's say you get stopped for whatever reason,
Yes.
do you, like, I don't want the policeman to, should you tell them right up front, look, I have a gun in my car?
For sure.
You should, if you need to
I assume everyone has a gun in their car because we live in Idaho. So my assumption when I pull someone over, right? My assumption when I pull someone over is there's a chance that a gun is in play in this car. So the beautiful part is if you let me know if I stop you for anything and you say like, hey, by the way, I got a firearm in the glove box. That's also where my registration is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, don't worry about it. I'll look up your registration just in my computer, and most of the time I can pull insurance that way too. Because if I pull you over for speed or something and we're just having a conversation about like license, registration, insurance, those two things I can pull up on my phone, and if you have your on my computer, and if you have your license with you, it makes the interaction so much more like safe for me because then I know what's in play. So I would always rather know than not know. Because I've had people say like, I have one right next to me in my seat, and I'm like, hey, just grab by the butt of it, hand it to me. I'll set it on the hood for our interaction, hand it back to them. They leave. It's super straightforward. But I would always rather know than not.
And if you're in a really high intense situation, so that the police know you're not part of the problem, do you just put your gun in the air, or do you do?
No, that's a good question. So in this situation, did you have to use your gun?
Yes.
Okay, so in this situation, if you've had to use your firearm, the best thing for me as a law enforcement officer, if there's enough time between you using it and me responding, I would actually rather you put it away.
Oh, put it away, not show you I have it?
Put it away, have your hands up and say, hey, I did use a firearm, this is where it's located, because then my concern is these.
And so you know, then you know whose side you're on?
Yes, very much so, very much so. Especially like the home stuff too. Like if you had to use a firearm in your home, communicating to dispatch, I used a firearm, I'm gonna put it here, or I've got to keep it on me because person is in my kitchen and they're still moving around.
So what do you do, handlers, and each time it's over? Is that what happened? They just want to be handlers and just no more today?
Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you very much.
Who else had questions about anything? Yes, sir.
You talked earlier about maintaining sightlines on property. I was a little confused by what that meant.
Just if you've got really overgrown areas of your property where people could easily hide if they're trying to scout out your house, just maybe like trim some bushes down so you have some more sight lines, so you're making sure that your property is in an easy spot for people to scope out your property, or have some wildlife cameras or something so you have some type of surveillance around your property. Yes, sir.
We were just wondering about using a gun in your home. So say you shoot somebody in your home and then they run out the front door, are you liable because they can say, oh, they shot me outside the house? Yeah, what are the laws, Idaho laws for?
They were in your home?
Yeah, they were in your home, you shot them, they run out the front door.
In Idaho, we're pretty good about homeowners being protected about things. I would just be very clear. That is why it's nice to maybe have an exterior security camera system. You can see person come in, you can see said person leave injured. So I would say if you plan on trying to utilize a firearm in your home, having some type of security camera system is a huge help to you, because then anything you tell me when I respond, it's really easy for me to back up anything you say via another source. Or if there's two of you in the home, it's really easy because you both say, yeah, we heard somebody kick in the front door. So most of the time though, we're trying to make sure that everyone's safe, and I'm just evaluating the situation as best I can for who's telling me the truth.
Say just don't clean up the blood stain.
Yeah, probably leave things as they are when I show up, so I'm not like, this seems really suspicious.
Clean up the ones outside when you dragged it back in the house.
This isn't Texas. Maybe don't just shoot people for being on your property, okay? Let's maybe not do that. Yes, sir.
What's going on in the world of gangs and cartels?
I would say, got to be a little careful because I'm not trying to specifically endorse people, but the increased border security and lack of drug traffic, I haven't had a drug arrest personally in like 9 months, and I would say 2 years ago I was arresting people every week for drug stuff. So our community has had significantly less drugs and less cartel activity than we've had in the last probably 3 or 4 years, which I've been very happy with, because before I was responding to fentanyl overdoses fairly often. I haven't gone to one in 6 months now. So I've been very satisfied with that, because my job's getting easier because there's less drug activity.
Is there anything that you have seen that we should, like specifically in our community, that we should make our kids aware of? Like, I know we had a school shooting like in Prairie or wherever it was, like a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But other things like that, like, I mean, I know we've talked about pornography and all these different things, but are there things that you are seeing that are specifically concerning to you, like with kids?
Less like really intense stuff, but I would just kind of have conversations with them about, like, don't do things to antagonize law enforcement. Like, if your kid's hanging out in the McDonald's parking lot in front of Albertsons at 2 a.m, they're probably doing dumb stuff. So just have conversations with them about staying out of things that are going to be perceived as problematic, and also like have good curfews for them. There's no reason for your kid to be out at 2 a.m.
My kid's 10, she's
No, I know, but this is more broad scope. Like, yeah. Yeah, if you get a phone call, me calling you about your kid at 3 a.m, we're a little bit past some of the issues there. But yeah, I would say I would have a lot of conversations about like vape use. I'd have a lot of conversations about that. That's really, really prevalent right now. And a lot of the kids are getting people to supply them with THC vapes from like Colorado and neighboring states that are where weed's legalized. We had one 3 or 4 months ago where we confiscated like 300 THC vapes that were going to be sold at one of the high schools here. So I would have a lot of conversations with them specifically about vaping and specifically about avoiding it. And you can get really sciencey with them about, you're going to turn into a psycho if you use a lot of THC. But you can have all the whatever conversations you deem relevant to help them stay away from that. But that has just become so common in the middle schools and high schools that's been a big concern for me. Oh yeah.
I work a lot with kids, and I would add to that one of the bigger threats our kids face is online. The online stuff is a pretty big issue right now.
Yes, sir.
What kind of protocols are there in place or should be in place at church level when we're sitting in a sacrament meeting if somebody comes storming in the chapel? There's obviously a lot of scenarios, and I kind of expected somebody to ask that question already tonight. But,
No, you're the guy.
Gotta be a little bit careful because church policy is pretty specific about who can and can't carry. I would say, if you're comfortable with it, have options to respond in your car so that you at least have some options readily available. I would say amongst your wards, I would have pretty clear conversations about, if we have a shooter, where are we going? What are we trying to do? Do we have a few people that we could somewhat designate as far as like they're going to probably be more likely to be able to respond well to a threat? Some of the thought process on active shooters has changed over the last few years, because for a long time it was, kind of like barricade, shut down. It's turned a lot more into run, hide, fight, and I would say that's probably your best course of action now, is less of hunker down and more of get you and your family out as quickly as possible. If you have to stay, hide. If there's no other option, fight. That's kind of the newer, more appropriate response curve for keeping you and your family safe.
So the ward doesn't have designated marksmen? No?
it's a new college.
First of all, thank you for this. It's been really good information. I wanted to just make a comment also on going back to the fraud and AI and how that is kind of coming together in a lot of situations.
Yes.
We're hearing more about AI deep fakes where someone gets a call and it's their kids or their grandchild's voice on the phone, and they say, "Mom, Dad, I'm in trouble, I need money, I need you to send it to this." and it's not your grandkid at all. It's a deep fake using AI.
Yeah.
And so having those discussions ahead of time so that you maybe have a code word or a code phrase or something to help identify when it really is your relative and your on that. And it's not just happening at the family level. Not too long ago, there was a corporate case where the CFO of a company had a video conference with the entire board of directors, and they told him to wire $50 million to this other account for an acquisition. Turned out everything about it was AI.
The entire conference
the
meeting.
entire board of directors and everything, and it was all wrong. So just having procedures, callbacks, code words, stuff like that is a good way to help protect.
I would actually say the code words is a wonderful idea. The other thing I would really recommend is I would probably not post a lot of content of your kids online, because in order for them to do that, they have to have voice samples. So
You only need 10 seconds.
10 seconds now is all they
10
need.
seconds of audio.
So maybe be really cognizant of what you're posting of your children online.
So even your voicemail, that's almost enough.
Get rid of your voicemail. All right, that's one I did not know, so I appreciate that.
10 seconds now, it's 5 seconds in a year from now.
Right. Yes, sir.
Another question about discharging a firearm within the Waterville County. I know when we were in the city, I had a badger chase me, and I asked the officer in our yard, and I said, could I have shot that thing? He says, no, you cannot discharge a firearm in the city limits, but I was in human danger. I mean, that badger was after me. And so I don't know, and then I've had dog attacks, the same thing. Are you available, can you pull your firearm on an animal like that in Loveland County?
I would say do what's necessary to protect yourself. Do be cognizant, though, that there is that code that you can't discharge a firearm in city limits. So I would take all other available options prior to that. But again, if you can articulate that, like, hey, this was a huge issue.
Yeah, he was after me.
I would say both us and the prosecutor's office, I would assume, would be very understanding if you can articulate what the situation was.
And one other question about the problem they're having in ward chapels up in Rexburg. Are we having that same problem in ward houses here in Ammon that you've heard of?
Not that I've heard of yet. I just became aware of that probably last week on my last shift that I worked. There's been some inappropriate behavior in some chapels up in Rexburg, it sounds like, but I was unaware of that. So no, nothing that I know of down here. We've also got a lot more restricted access in our chapels in our area, because I think we're all fob now for our whole stake, aren't we? Fob access for most of them. And that's pretty well restricted. So I would say just be aware if you're opening the chapel for someone or for some event, just make sure you're checking everything before you lock up. Yes, sir.
I think it goes back to what you initially started with, the situational awareness. Just keep your eyes open, keep your nose out of your phone when you're in part of that kind of stuff, especially when kids are around.
Yes.
Just keep your eyes and ears open, and if you don't feel right, anger. You know, I mean, you see something you don't know, you don't have to go and inspect them, but you can go say hi.
Yeah.
You know?
And if they act weird, that's pretty easy kickoff of like, what are you doing here? Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to think of a great question of this. Something I've had on my mind is the safety of when your child goes to someone else's house.
Yes.
And so, you know, you can have conversations about identifying what's good and bad, but what's hard is when the rules are different for house to house. So like in my house, you know, we tell our son he can't be on YouTube because we can't trust that other things might come to you.
Absolutely.
But then he goes to someone else's house and says, oh, you're watching this on YouTube. And he said, well, you're not supposed to be on it, so let's not the same go in his house. And so anyway, it's just a little tricky if you want to, once again, teach your kids opportunities to make choices that are good for them, but we also know they have development traits.
Yes.
And so, I don't know if you want to build on that thought or.
I would. It's not a super appealing conversation to have with other parents, but honestly, I wouldn't let your kid hang out at another house if you're heavily concerned about the technology use at that house. Because I would say for myself, growing up, that's where I got exposed to probably the worst stuff. Was at a friend's house who parents had no idea, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
It's hard to sneak around with your kids. My husband made a good point. He says, you used to have to search for it. Now it searches for you.
Yes.
Like it was,
Very much so.
It's a different world of parenting, which is scary.
Yeah, so I would say be very willing to talk to your friends, your children's friends' parents, and just have really frank conversations. And I know that's not fun, and I know other parents are going to act weird about it, especially if they're not in the church, or especially if they don't share some of your same outlooks. They're going to be awkward conversations. Maybe try and make sure that your kids are hanging out with their friends in your home. And I know that is incredibly inconvenient, but I think those are conversations worth having. Yes, sir.
I know that, like, I'm going to totally counter what you're saying here, but like the times I've opened my mouth, I've had the exact opposite situation where most of the people that I have talked to about this stuff have the exact same values. They're like, oh, yeah, no, we don't do that in our home either, you know?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes around that they are seeking now. I mean, come on, we were all teenagers at one point. We all have it, right?
Fair.
But at the same time, it's just, again, having those open conversations. There's a phrase, it's weird that it came up this way and that I hung on to it this way for so long. We were talking about a mailbox in the neighborhood that kept getting broken into. And one of the things that they got, because they're asking for, we need a heavier duty mailbox. What do we do to keep this from happening? Because it kept getting broken into. And the guy that we asked, somebody that was in law enforcement, he said, light scatters the roaches, right? So if you put a light over the mailbox, people aren't going to bother. Well, if you shine a light on a topic, people aren't going to bother. Right? And if you go and have that conversation, well, if they react negatively, probably not the best people to be hanging around, right? And it scatters the roaches real quick.
Okay, well, we'll kind of wrap all this up, but if you have more questions, feel free to come ask me. I don't want to keep everybody here, so feel free to come ask me more questions if you want, but we'll kind of wrap up where we're at now. Is that works?
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Just a few thoughts that have been running through my mind is, and he touched on it. We have lots of people that have lots of expertise in different areas. If anyone's willing to do what he did, let me or your ward preparedness leader know, your bishop, let us know, because we're looking for awesome classes like this, so as well on different topics. So we do have a few other classes prepared as well, which you've probably seen in those emails. So thanks again, you were awesome. Sister Lewis is going to close us with prayer. Thanks so much.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful that we could be here this evening and to be taught and to be made more aware of things that we can do to feel confident and to feel safe and to keep our families safe. We are grateful for this wonderful community that we live in, and also for the church and for our friendships and for our associations. We pray now that we will take the things that we have learned and apply them as we need to, and also other things as far as preparedness goes, and that we can go forward again with confidence, and that we will have thy spirit to be with us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Just really quickly, I did print out a quick handout of just some preparedness ideas for home, and then some just everyday carry options if you want to grab one of those.
So what is the deal with